It's Memorial Day weekend in 2016. We're in Hope Mills, North Carolina. 20 minutes south of Fayetteville. New homes are under construction. It is a boom time in the area. Ken Lombard takes advantage of the holiday weekend when no one's around to cruise this area, trying to pick a place for he and his family to live.
He sees something, he pulls over, he gets out.
Are they drunk and passed out? Are they sleeping? What are they doing?
Hey, excuse me.
He's completely unprepared for what he sees.
Cumberland County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Up behind John Griffin Middle School, looks like a young male, not responsive, laying on the ground. He's young. He's got a blindfold on.
He has a blindfold on?
Yeah, it looks like he's been shot, too.
I spent my career closing murder cases. But I'm not the only one who answered the call. It takes a rare breed to solve the unsolvable, to catch a ruthless killer, to find justice for the dead. That's what it takes to be an American detective.
I'm Joshua Hamilton. I began my career in Hope Mills around 2006, and I worked my way up to investigations around 2010. I was attending a really good friend of mine's wedding at Carolina Beach. The phone rings. It was a senior investigator telling me I needed to get back to Hope Mills, that there had been a homicide. I never know when I'm going to get called. So it was a disappointment to have to leave this wedding. But when the phone rings, you have to go. Left my family to enjoy their time at the beach and drove back to Hope Mills.
Yeah, Detective Hamilton and I, we're on our way back, but it's going to take us a few hours.
His partner, Detective Reagan, goes with him.
We coordinated with the officers at the scene. It was a matter of making sure that all the evidence was collected and properly handled.
I'm the sergeant of one of the 4 platoons on the road for Hope Mills Police Department. And on this particular morning, I was in charge. In my 24 years of service, I've never seen a homicide like this. When we first got the call, we figured it was a hiker or an early morning jogger that just had a heart attack.
When we got here, we found out it was a shooting.
The victim appears to be a teenager, has a shirt or an undershirt tied around his head as if it's a blindfold. Rigor mortis has begun. This body's been dead for more than a few hours and less than a day.
You could see bullet wounds in his body. There was a gash on the top of his head with skull fragments. It looked like he was hit with something on the head.
Let's roll him over, see if he's got any ID on him.
There was 2 projectiles that were found in the dirt underneath the body, as if they had, passed through the body and they were trapped in the dirt. That indicated to us that he was definitely killed in that location.
He did not have any ID on him, so it made it really tough for us to be able to find out why he was out there.
Finding the identity in an investigation is absolutely paramount. You can't establish a timeline. That creates a whirlwind of problems.
Sarge, we've got something over here.
So they work in the area with metal detectors, and they do find a group of expended casings.
The casings were all .380 caliber. It's a pretty common caliber. Small, but there were a number of them, which told us we were dealing with a semi-automatic handgun.
We'll keep canvassing the area for a weapon. Good work.
Based on him being blindfolded, the position of the body, it looked as if it was an execution. This was explicitly done with intent and malice. They knew what they were doing when they did it.
Once they had finished processing what they could learn from the body, they would tag it at this point with a John Doe and transport him to the medical examiner in Raleigh so an official autopsy could be performed.
So we got home back to Hope Mills and we went out to the area of McKinnon Farm Road.
I started thinking about who, what, where, when, and why. I found that most homicides in general occur involve sex, money, or drugs. Those three things start going through my head.
Killers, for the most part, respond to normal human emotions. They're often remorseful afterwards. When you get somebody abnormal, which fortunately for all of us is a relatively rare thing, they don't need a reason. They kill because they like it. There's no more dangerous person than that.
How'd this kid get here?
I'm wondering, had he been kidnapped and taken to this location, robbed, shot?
We started creating theories of what could have happened. And we were all over the place, from some sort of gang initiation to a robbery or a drug deal going awry.
When there is no wallet or any paperwork of any kind, the first step is to try to get fingerprints from the hands to see if this person is in the criminal justice system.
Well, it's holiday weekend, but I'll make a phone call, see if I can't get someone in to check his prints.
Right. What's this?
I think it may be tire tracks in the suspect vehicle.
We had little tire tracks, but we also didn't know whose tire tracks belonged to who.
This is a dirt road where people go out there to four-wheel drive. We weren't sure if it was part of the crime scene or if this was kids playing and riding around in their ATVs.
Hey, detectives, I think I've got something over here.
Thank you.
We had located a baseball bat that was on the opposite side of the trail from where the victim was found.
There appeared to be blood and dirt on the tip of it, but they also thought it might have been red paint. This is a construction site. This is an area where kids could be playing.
Kids often attack construction areas by beating on things that aren't theirs and so on. Could it be some painted object somewhere that's where the red came from? It's hard to say, but it's there, so it cannot be ignored.
Looks like we have some company.
The media showed up. They listened to scanners. It's not uncommon for them to hear voices on the radio, and next thing you know, they're gonna show up.
The problem with that was that we didn't need them getting close and disturbing or destroying any evidence.
You're just gonna have to wait back by your van.
Can you just tell us what's going on?
Nope, not right now.
Well, Officer Whitmill is assigned to prevent them from interfering with the investigation. He notices a car. He's seen it a couple of times in the last few minutes driving back and forth near the crime scene.
We didn't know why they were there, what they were up to. So it was kind of odd that somebody would just show up there and watch us.
There's an old expression in law enforcement, it's called JDLR. Just doesn't look right.
That made us really suspicious that these might be the suspects.
It's not unusual for a suspect to return to the scene of a crime or even remain present at the scene of a crime to see what the police are up to.
I was notified that this car is driven by multiple times, so I had the officers initiate an investigative stop on the vehicle.
Hey, stop! Stop right there! Roll your window down. What are you guys doing out here right now?
Is there a problem, officer?
It's important to talk to them. Who are they, and what's their explanation for being in this area?
The officer was able to talk to the two people, and they said, we're just looking around, just kind of curious, that sort of thing.
They say, that's not against the law, is it? No, it's not. But you still confirm. You check it out.
They asked them where they were on the night of May 27th of 2016, where the car was.
He explains that they were in the military stationed at Fort Bragg. They verify that both men were on duty that night, and therefore they could not be involved in this homicide.
I think they were just being fairly nosy, wanted to know what was going on in the area. It all led back to nothing. Just got to continue to drive on and come up with something else.
So it's time to take the next step. They take prints from the remains of this young man to see if this person is in the criminal justice system.
And unfortunately, he had not been entered in the AFIS fingerprint system, which told us, we were dealing with a young person that possibly had never been in trouble.
He is a truly innocent victim.
Thank you.
We started searching missing person reports from neighboring jurisdictions.
I called almost every police department in the area, sheriff's office and police department, probably in a solid 30 to 50 mile radius of Hope Mills looking.
All of them come back, no missing reports matching his description.
I appreciate it.
At the present moment, our young man is nothing more than a ghost. No one seems to know who he is or where he's from.
It really gets frustrating because identifying your victim shouldn't be the hard part. The hard part should be trying to figure out who committed this heinous crime.
Well, Hamilton and Reagan have got this search underway. They re-canvass the neighborhood and make sure that no one saw or heard anything.
I want witnesses. I don't want people to start knocking on doors and talking to people. You're not going to know what people seen. You're not going to know what people heard until you start asking them whether they want to talk to you or not. If they don't, a lot of times they'll take a card and call you later.
They run across a woman in the neighborhood about a half a mile away from the crime scene.
Oh, I did hear something. I'm in charge of our neighborhood watch group.
Oh, wow. She's the chairperson of the neighborhood watch group. She could be a great resource.
She was telling us that several people had posted on their community board about hearing shots fired in the area on Friday night.
Here it is.
He says he heard the gunshots just after 11:30 p.m.
Any others?
Yeah, let me find it. Here it is.
Just before midnight.
That is the first significant piece of information they have. They can now start building a timeline for this murder. But the question remains, who is John Doe?
While all this is going on, the victim had been transported to the offices of the Chief Medical Examiner in Raleigh.
As you can see, we got quite a few bullet wounds to the torso and upper body.
They learned the victim has suffered multiple gunshot wounds to the torso, the arm, and the right thigh.
He had been shot from different angles. That told me immediately that he was rolling around and he was alive when he took most of his shots. There was nothing quick about how he died.
But there's more evidence of assault here.
The skull had been deformed like it had been hit with a blunt object several times.
The Chief Medical Examiner confirms that the cause of death was the blow to the head.
Excuse me, sorry. This is Hamilton.
When Hamilton's at the coroner's office, his cell phone rings. It's a friend of his from Oak County Sheriff's Department.
He told me that they had responded to a missing person report filed by Amanda Daniels. Amanda reported her brother missing.
It was for a 16-year-old young man, and his name was Andrew Dorenzi.
Thank you. We got a likely candidate. They're gonna email me a picture sent to the kid's family.
She was able to send me a picture to my cell phone immediately, and when I seen the picture, I knew we were looking at the individual we were supposed to be. That was definitely him, without a doubt.
Here it is.
He takes his cell phone and holds it up next to the face on the morgue table. Oh, God. That's him. That's our kid. The first step is to make a death notification to the Durenzi family.
Death notifications are the worst. It breaks your heart, especially you're dealing with a kid.
And we apologize for being here under these circumstances.
When they came up to the house, my sisters were there, and me and my husband.
We kind of knew what to expect. My whole drive home from work, I just cried and prayed and tried to figure out what was going on. And we told the family that a body had been discovered and that we had some photographs that we like somebody to look at and see if they could identify the body.
My husband was like, I'll check it so they don't have to. And I'm a control freak, so I'm like, no, I'm going to look at this photo with you.
You can step over here, please.
So then Detective Hamilton pulled a phone out, and when he turned it on, there was a picture on there, and I could immediately tell it was Andrew.
They were both looking at the picture, and I could see by Amanda's expression on her face that it was him.
My stomach definitely dropped when I saw his face on the phone. The differences in the way he looked the last time I saw him alive to the way he looked in the picture was just kind of terrifying.
I just started crying. I fell to the floor. I kept screaming that this can't be real.
All I could do was hug on his sisters and let them know that, we were going to do everything we could to find out what happened to him and punish the ones who did it.
Nate and Amanda walked down the porch with me, and we started talking about Andrew.
Andrew was 14 when he came to live with us because my mom was having some health issues.
He just needed a place to have a better living environment than what his mother could give him.
So she ended up letting him come up and stay with us.
Amanda and I had 3 boys, and they just loved their Uncle Andrew.
He was definitely more like a bigger brother to them. It was beautiful. I was like, that's so cute. He's trying to teach him everything.
They explained he's 16 years old, and he's very bright. He's homeschooled. He works 2 jobs.
He wanted to be a pilot. He just wasn't sure if he wanted to go the military route to do it or figure out his own way to pay for flight lessons to do it.
Do you recall the last time you spoke with Andrew? Yeah, I just spoke with him Friday night.
I called and had asked him for money. His car had broken down near McKinnon Farm Road, and he needed money to try to get a tow truck. I explained to him that I didn't have any cash at the time, but I could come out to where he was and get his car fixed there. But he had told me that I didn't need to worry about that and that he was safe. And that was just kind of a weird thing for him to say at the time.
This call puts Andrew at the crime scene. But the question is, where is Andrew's car? Did the killer take it? They put on an APB and continue with their interview.
We learned that Andrew had a bank account that was linked to Amanda and Nate's bank account.
Huh. That's odd.
What's that?
Do you know anything about these withdrawals?
So we had seen that on Friday he had withdrawn $80 from his account, and then later on had moved $120 from Amanda's account to his and withdrew it.
I was like, what is he doing? This is not Andrew. He does not take money like that.
So that Saturday, we just continuously called him and texted him to try to figure out where he was, why he took all the money out of Amanda's account.
and just couldn't get a hold of him.
Amanda kept thinking that maybe something was wrong with his phone. And Sunday, nobody heard from him, and we decided that Amanda should go file a missing persons report.
Could these bank withdrawals be linked to his murder? What if somebody is aware he has access to money and takes it under threat of death and then kills him anyway? Since he's homeschooled, they're going to ask, so who does he run with? Who does he spend his time with?
We had told the detectives that Andrew really only had one friend, and his name was Daniel.
And according to the family, Andrew actually moved in with Daniel a few weeks earlier.
Andrew was definitely an independent kid. He was kind of ready to get out on his own and start being an adult.
Hey. Hey, man. Thanks again for letting me stay here.
Yeah, it's cool. We're gonna grab something to eat. You guys wanna come with?
Yeah, I could eat. What about you? Sure. Let me just throw my stuff down.
We had met Daniel at the Fort Bragg Fair just a couple weeks prior to this. His mom was a bail bondsman, but we didn't really know much else about him.
When she said that, I knew exactly who she was talking about. There was only one female bonds person that I was familiar with that had a son named Daniel.
They call her and they tell her they want to have a conversation with her son, Daniel. She agrees to set this meeting up at her office.
Hey, Mary.
Hey. Come on back. We're glad to help you. Daniel's back here in the back office.
So they go in and sit down with Daniel.
Hey, thanks for meeting us.
Yeah, hi. What's all this about?
Daniel was 19 years old, clean cut, well dressed, and we told him while we were there that we wanted to talk about Andrew.
First thing out of his mouth was, yeah, I heard about Andrew. It's bad how he was left out in the woods like that.
It's really messed up, you know.
It was like light bulbs going off in my mind because we had never released to the media anything other than a death investigation, not even that it was a man or a woman. So that told us he knew something more than what he should have.
So how does Daniel know that? Well, that is the million-dollar question. Daniel Hall has stated facts to Hamilton and Reagan that he could not reasonably know unless he was involved.
He said, you know, it's really messed up how they found him shot up like that.
So now alarm bells go off in their heads. Hamilton's alarms are ringing so loud he can't hear himself think.
I kind of glanced over at Regan, and I knew exactly he caught on to it too. We knew we were about to get something out of him at that point.
I heard you and Andrew were living together recently.
Yeah, me, Andrew, and my brother Devin. But it was just for a little while.
Hey, give me some of that.
Yeah, you got something to drink?
Yeah, check the fridge. You guys have any cash? We need to pay that electric bill.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
He said Andrew moved in with he and his brother Devin, but they were having trouble paying their bills.
You hear me, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't got it right now, but...
Daniel explains they were evicted the week before Andrew was found dead, and Andrew had not been seen by Daniel for that entire week.
It's an email from the bank. I'm gonna step outside a minute.
We know Andrew used an ATM late that night, so I was working in conjunction with the State Police Credit Union.
The email informs him that they have reviewed the surveillance tapes for the time in question, and they have attached photographs to the email.
And the first image that was Andrew standing at the ATM withdrawing money, and there was a silver Pontiac Sunfire in the background, obviously waiting on him.
In another picture, Hamilton sees a black male driving a different car. The most interesting fact in Hamilton's view is that Andrew is seated in the back passenger seat. There are others in the car, but Hamilton can't make them out.
We're dealing with a lot of people now. We just need to find out who these people are. I was super excited jumping up and down when I got that picture. We had a lead.
Hamilton knows by his own experience he's probably looking at pictures of the people that killed Andrew Dorenzi.
We should get going, George.
Wait. There's something that I need to tell you.
When Hamilton rejoins the group after reviewing his photos, Daniel, without being prompted, suddenly wants to change his story.
I picked him up.
I think Daniel realized real quick that we were going to be able to see those banking transactions and tell that they were together on that night.
So I began talking to Daniel, and he actually admits that he saw Andrew Friday night. He admitted that he drove a silver Pontiac Sunfire. He told me that he had picked Andrew up and they had gone to the ATM to get some money that Andrew owed him for a light bill from when he lived with him.
How much money? It was around $80.
Okay, continue.
He said they got a milkshake. Then he took Andrew back to a guy named Ian Robinson's house to drop him off.
It's obvious to Hamilton and to Reagan that Daniel is all over the map with his story. First, he's convinced he hadn't seen him for a week, and all of a sudden he is convinced he saw him yesterday.
Anything Daniel said at that point needed to be corroborated. It's time to go track down Ian and see what Ian has to say.
We find Ian Robinson, and Ian agrees to talk.
Yeah, they were here that night.
His statement was Andrew and Daniel had left together in Daniel's car. They were gone for a short time, but did come back.
Ian's telling us part truths and half truths, but he's not telling us the full truth.
So we got a little harder on him. I told Ian that whoever gets on the train first is going to get the ride. The DA's office was going to look for the most cooperative one, and lying was just going to make it worse.
Ian then says Daniel came running up to the front and said they grabbed Andrew and threw him in the car. They have him. But Daniel never said who they are.
I believe that Ian was not being 100% honest. To what level, I didn't know exactly. So Ian was offered a polygraph examination.
Yeah, whatever you need. Come on, gotta call work though. Hey.
I was like, awesome, let's do this. I set it up that day.
He thinks he can outsmart these detectives. Well, he has another thing coming.
Are we now in the state of North Carolina?
Yes.
Do you know how Andrew was killed?
No.
Do you know for sure who is responsible for Andrew's death?
No.
I'm able to sit in another room and actually watch the test. He's fidgeting around. He's having to be told to sit still. He's just clearly nervous.
Okay, we're all done. Just sit tight and I'll be right back.
The polygrapher came in and basically told me Ian knew way more than he was ever letting on.
Matter of fact, the polygraph examiner that did the examination has done more polygraphs than anybody else in the state of North Carolina and said it was one of the worst fails he'd ever seen.
So, of course, he got a post-polygraph interview. We didn't even go to a recorded room. We sat outside on the curb. I sat down next to him, and we just had a heart-to-heart. I just told him, look, man, this is the time. It's now or never. The cards were starting to stack against him. His demeanor started changing. That's when he pretty much told us what had happened.
He tells Hamilton that the first part of what he said is true, that Andrew and Daniel went to the ATM machine to get the money that Andrew owed for utilities payment.
He said while they were gone, Devin showed up at his house.
Screwed us to that apartment. Dude, Andrew's out getting the money right now. He needs to cough up more.
Devin said that he was going to kidnap Andrew.
Meeting my friends in a minute and buying a piece off of them.
What? A gun? Are you serious? I don't want any part of this.
I'm not asking you to do anything. Just keep your mouth shut.
Devin tells Ian, I'm going to take him to the ATM by force and make him pay me. And I'll give you $100 to look the other way.
Ian agreed to accept the $100, and all he knew was Devin did show up when they got back and took Andrew, put him into a car, and drove away.
That's when Hamilton recalls the car seen in the background on the second withdrawal picture.
You recognize this car?
He said he wasn't sure, but he had seen a red car that looked like that one at Devin and Daniel's apartment complex.
Oh, really? Daniel and his brother Devin are in this murder investigation up to their neck.
So now we need to get Devin and Daniel at this point. We make arrangements to start getting some reinforcements together to go over to Devin's apartment where they're living now.
Once we got there, we got notified that Daniel was leaving the house. So we instructed one of the officers to go ahead and stop him.
Here he comes, guys. Here he comes. Go, go, go.
Daniel, put your hands in the air. Put your hands in the air. Do not move. Do not move. Put your hands behind your back.
He offers no resistance. It's almost as if he's resigned to the fact he's going to be arrested. He just slumps his shoulders and immediately turns around when they tell him to.
He was placed into custody, put in a car, and transported to Fayetteville Police Department. Then we went with those officers to the apartment.
Everybody on your toes now.
Anytime you're walking up to an apartment like this, there's always some apprehension. This could go really wrong.
Once you kill once, after that it's only numbers. Anyone who is responsible for the death of a human being is dangerous.
I hear him.
They knock loudly. They hear music and voices inside, no response at the door. What is coming through that door next? Bullets or a face? Hard to say. They're prepared for both. When they knock on the door the second time, they're prepared for whatever happens behind that door. But when the door opens, it's a tall kid with unkempt hair.
Are you Devin Hall?
Yeah? What's going on?
I'm gonna need you to come with us. Hands, show me your hands. Show me your hands. Yeah.
They push the door open wider, and sitting on the sofa is a thin black male who looks remarkably like the guy in the ATM machine photo.
We had no idea we were looking for this guy, but that's the guy right there. We got eyes on him now.
Get up! Get up! What's your name? Darian Rebels. What kind of car you drive, Darian? A red Honda Accord. Why?
That's the very same car they saw in the bank photos.
He and Devin Hall were taken to the police department. I began securing search warrants for Darian's car, and then Detective Hamilton started conducting interviews.
I went to talk to Darian. Darian told me that he knew nothing about the homicide.
This is my first time ever being here. I've never murdered anybody, and I know just stuff like that.
Darian doesn't know he's Darian. The usual story. He doesn't know anything about anything. He doesn't know who Andrew is. Never seen anybody named Andrew, never been anywhere. Spent most of his life alone, apparently.
Do you really want to go this route? What route? First-degree murder? No, sir.
I can let you keep digging your own grave.
I laid a picture in front of him of the ATM showing him making a transaction with the victim's bank card. At that point, I just let him start talking.
Darian says that Devin Hall told him that Andrew had given money to Daniel when in fact he should have given it to him. And he's going to get this money from him no matter what it takes to do it.
Darian, being a good friend, said, hey, I'll go help you get that money. It's fine.
What were you doing?
I was driving. He took me to a house.
Darian says that Devin said he knew someone that had a gun for sale, and he was going to go get that gun and use it to threaten Andrew with to get his money.
They went and picked up Deontay Walker.
You got the piece?
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
Get in.
All right.
He got in the car. He was going to accompany that gun until they got the money. Darian said they showed back up over at Ian's, that Devin exited the car, approached Andrew with the gun, ordering that he come with them.
Andrew, get in the car.
I guess they got into some argument, I don't know. And then they all got in the car.
They left the area, told Andrew, you owe me money. Andrew tells him, just take me to an ATM. I'll give you all I can.
Give me your 10 bank card. Now, come on. Okay, here.
He got up to the window and used the PIN number to withdraw $120, which is a maximum withdrawal from an ATM machine.
They leave that location when they go to McKinnon Farm Road. They pull down this dirt road. They all get out of the car.
And then it all happened. Ice and flashes. Gunshots.
And Darian says, I couldn't watch anymore at that point. I got back in the car. So Hamilton goes back and confronts Devin.
Your life is about to change. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to tell me exactly in your own words what happened and why things went so bad. Because at the end of the day, evidence don't lie.
Devin was a very cocky, arrogant individual. He felt that it was pure disrespect that Andrew didn't pay him his share of this debt that was a few $100 that they had to split.
I called him, I was like, yo, I gotta get something, bro. I don't care what it is, but it could be $10, $15, da-da-da-da. And he was like, I was like, bro, are you serious?
So he came up with the idea to kidnap Andrew and get that money that he felt that he deserved.
Something to get 120, it was 120. He handed me the money and I was like, damn, I was really about to let him go. And I called my brother and I was like, bro, I got the money. I got $120. And DJ was like, yeah, that's some money, but it's not enough.
They leave that location when they go to McKinnon Farm Road. They pull down this dirt road. They all get out of the car, trying to figure out how they're going to get more money.
You need to come up with some more money, bro. I don't care how you get it, but you better find it somehow.
I can't get you any more money.
Devin says, call your family and get more money. This is the conversation that Nate remembered. And he tells him it's for a car problem, but it's really not for that. It's for Devin. That all fails.
New plan. Tell you what, if you do this, you're cool about it, we'll let you go. Put that on. Get in the car.
So Andrew basically puts a blindfold on himself, a shirt out of the back of the car. They put him in the trunk, and they began to ride around a dirt road in an undeveloped subdivision.
How do we know he's not gonna say nothing? How are we sure that he's not gonna say anything? And I was like, bruh, I'm gonna just have to do it.
Well, thank you for not killing me. Thank you. I thought you were gonna kill me. Thank you.
He gets Andrew out of the trunk, and Andrew even says to Devin, "Thank you for not killing me." And Devin says in reply, "I got you, man."
I backed up and I fired 3 shots. And I heard him say, "Shoot me in my head."
Shoot me in my head!
So, shot 5 more times. I just went in and got all of them out.
Devin's angry. Angry that Andrew just won't die. And proceeds to pound on Andrew's head until he stops moving.
He was gone. I just threw the bat in the woods all day. I was like, bro, we gone. Take me home, take me home.
Devin was probably the coldest individual I've ever seen. He had no remorse for anything he had done. After the interview on him, he asked for one thing, to call his mom. So we called his mom, and I sat there and listened to him tell his mom that he's being charged with murder.
Mom. Baby. I just got charged with 1st-degree murder, 1st-degree kidnapping, 1st-degree armed robbery.
And I'm just watching this ripple effect of families ruined. Andrew's family's life's ruined. Now, Devin, as a parent, I'm just like, Jesus, my Lord.
3 men are charged with taking a 16-year-old boy to a dirt road in Cumberland County and killing him.
Police say it happened last weekend in Hope Mills. 18-year-old Devin Hall, 19-year-old Daniel Hall, and 20-year-old Darian Rebels all are of Fayetteville, and they're all charged in connection. Police are not identifying the 16-year-old victim. All 3 men are being held in the Cumberland County Detention Center.
One thing that was very interesting in this case is none of them had criminal records before this tragic homicide occurred. We spent a lot of time determining what was the appropriate level of culpability for each one of these individuals.
Devin Hall accepted a plea deal for 1st-degree murder, robbery with a dangerous weapon, 1st-degree kidnapping.
He received life in prison without the possibility of parole in exchange for taking the death penalty off the table.
Daniel Hall helped his brother Devin get Andrew's car away from Ian's house and sold the car. So Daniel pled guilty to accessory after the fact to kidnapping and received 3 years in jail. Ian Robinson accepted $100 for allowing Andrew to be kidnapped there at his house. He pled guilty to accessory after the fact to kidnapping and received about 2 or 3 years in jail.
Deontay Walker brought the gun to the equation.
He also pled guilty to accessory after the fact and received about 2 to 3 years in jail. Darian Rebels, the driver, pled guilty to armed robbery, conspiracy, and kidnapping, and received about 10 years in prison for his role.
The hardest part about everything was knowing that the people involved, for the most part, they all knew Andrew and they knew the type of person he was. The world's missing a really great giver to humanity with Andrew gone.
When Andrew first moved in, my kids were always home, and he was trying to teach them work ethic and appreciating the small things and stuff. So that's actually one of the things I still miss, because for me, even though I lost him too, I know that relationship he had and how it affected the kids.
Detectives Hamilton and Reagan handled this case expertly. They pushed all the buttons and they pushed them in the correct order. They were able to resolve a mystery in relatively short order by doing what homicide detectives do. One foot in front of the other, one fact to the next fact, until you have the right faces in front of you. Precisely what they did in this case, and what they've done in every case. Andrew Dorenzi was an innocent person who wanted to be a pilot, died before his 17th birthday, died before he ever took the controls of an aircraft that he dreamed about all his life.
I still don't think that it's really hit me that I'm never going to see him again. It really doesn't make sense.
With any homicide, it never goes away. Someday, I'll retire from this career, God willing. And I'll carry to the grave any and all homicides I've worked in my time. The circumstances and the devastation that they all created, you think about them all the time.
Friend, a 22-year-old named Christopher Cole Thomas had a sudden mental breakdown, pulled their car over, took the keys, and vanished into the pitch-black night. Now, Cole is not from around there. He is a bright, driven young man from Florida, a former pre-med student taking a break to work construction in Minnesota. He was a salutatorian of his high school, a boy who wanted to heal people, inspired by his brother, who has autism. He barely knows these two men. Yet, they expect the police to believe that this young man simply evaporated into thin air. And what do these two upstanding citizens do after reporting him missing? They find the keys under the car, leave their supposed friend in the dark, and drive back to Minnesota. You have to be kidding me. You do not leave a friend behind. And you certainly do not fail to call his parents. The mother of Cole, Kathy, and his father, Chris, have to find out days later from the police. But Chris is a smart man. He tracks down the boss of Cole, a man named Stephen, who drops a bomb. This was no holiday road trip. Julian and Jeremy drove from Minnesota to North Carolina to buy methamphetamine. They met up with some local players, Rudolfo De Leon Jr., who goes by Rudy, and Anthony James Jr., known as TJ. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. Julian and Jeremy admit to the drug deal, but stick to the story that Cole just panicked and ran. But liars always forget the silent witnesses. Captain Greg Percy spends countless hours reviewing surveillance tapes. And at exactly 1:10 in the morning on a pharmacy camera, he spots a ghost. It is Cole walking across the frame, and trailing right behind him is Jeremy Carpenter. My. The story changes again. Jeremy now claims he followed Cole to a church, stopped to get on his knees to pray, heard a car door, maybe some gunshots, and then got thirsty and walked to a fast food restaurant for a cup of water at 2:20 in the morning. A cup of water while your friend is allegedly getting shot? I tell you, you cannot fix stupid. And you certainly cannot hide it when the cell phone data comes into play. The family hires a private investigator named David Marshburn, who maps the digital footprints. It turns out Julian and Jeremy had the phone of Cole the entire time. The data shows their phones moving together, leaving Benson, heading toward Wayne County, and going dark around 4 in the morning. The digital trail reveals a conspiracy, a network of lies, and a botched double cross. You see, the working theory is that Julian was planning to rip off the dealers. He would buy the drugs and then have his own crew steal them back. But what Julian did not realize was that his quiet, small-town Florida driver, Cole, understood Spanish. Imagine sitting in that car, listening to a conversation, and realizing you are driving a hearse. Cole likely panicked because he knew he was a dead man walking if he stayed. He bolted. Drugs were thrown out the window. Rudy called in a man named Gordo and others to hunt Cole down. Gordo admits they found him, but claims Cole got in the car willingly. Paranoia does not breed compliance. They force him into that car, and from there, Cole disappeared into the abyss of Wayne County. His parents, Chris and Kathy, even bonded TJ out of jail, an agonizing sacrifice, hoping the tears of a mother could break the silence of a criminal. When Kathy sat across from TJ, she did not scream. She used the most powerful weapon a mother has, her broken heart, and for a fleeting second, the armor cracked. TJ saw the devastation he helped create. He spoke, but the conscience of a coward only extends as far as his own safety. He gave them enough to know Cole was gone, but not enough to bring him home. Julian, Jeremy, Rudy, and TJ all faced charges for concealing a death, but those were dropped to preserve a future homicide case. Jeremy Carpenter died in 2024, taking his secrets to the grave. But the data does not die, and the truth has a funny way of clawing its way out of the dirt. Someone out there knows exactly what happened to Christopher Cole Thomas. If you have the slightest shred of a conscience left, or if you simply want to save your own skin before the walls close in, you need to speak up. The Benson Police Department can be reached at 919-894-2091, or you can contact the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation at 919-779-8188. Do not wait for the knock on your door, because I promise you it is coming. Humans are strange creatures. They kill for the most absurd reasons you could possibly imagine, driven by shadows in their own minds that no one else can see. I tell you, after decades of looking into the eyes of murderers, you realize that the trigger is rarely the weapon itself. It is the slow, silent poison of the mind. Let me take you down to Rowan County, North Carolina, a quiet place where people leave their doors unlocked. July 23rd, 2013. A Tuesday morning shattered by a 911 call. A man named Chuck Reeves finds his fiancée, 62-year-old Shirley Pierce, dead in her own bathtub. My. When I hear a scene is bathed in bleach, I know I am dealing with someone who thinks they can outsmart the police. They always think they're the first person to invent bleach. You have to be kidding me. Shirley was a saint, a hard-working Southern belle who spent her time raising money for charity and doting on her grandson. She did not deserve the sheer rage inflicted upon her. We cleared Chuck. We cleared an old abusive ex-boyfriend named Richard. And then a phone call changes everything. Irvin Johnson, a co-worker of Shirley, calls in and says he thinks his own wife committed the murder. Let's talk about Marlene Johnson. Born into money, entitled, groomed to perfection, but harboring a soul as ugly as sin. In 2003, something inside Marlene broke. She became consumed by an aggressive, terrifying paranoia that her quiet husband was having affairs. When Irvin took a job where Shirley worked, Marlene locked onto Shirley like a heat-seeking missile. Shirley was everything Marlene was not. She was genuinely loved by everyone. Marlene hired private investigators, used drones, stalked this poor woman for years. Imagine the psychological prison Marlene built for herself. Waking up every single day with her blood boiling, dedicating her entire existence to destroying a woman who was doing absolutely nothing wrong. The jealousy rotted her brain. She even attacked Shirley in a restaurant once. Shirley, being the kind soul she was, refused to press charges to save Irvin from embarrassment. That kindness cost Shirley her life. On the night of the murder, Marlene slipped into that house, fueled by years of fabricated delusions, and ambushed Shirley. She tried to wash away the sins with bleach, but she cut her own hands during the frenzy. A classic amateur mistake. She tried to use a friend named Tim Connor as an alibi, but Tim folded instantly when we found a missing knife from his kitchen set. Marlene sat in the interrogation room, wearing sunglasses, acting bored. The absolute disdain I have for that kind of arrogance is hard to put into words. She gasped and collapsed when the guilty verdict was read. Reality finally caught up to her delusions, but murder is not always born from malicious jealousy. Sometimes it is born from a mind stretched so thin that it just snaps. Fast forward to May 2005, St. Petersburg, Florida. A foreclosure cleanout crew finds a mummified body wrapped in plastic, surrounded by dozens of cheap air fresheners. A .38 caliber bullet to the head. It was 40-year-old Debbie Burns. Now, Debbie was developmentally disabled since she was a toddler. functioning with the mind of a child. Her older sister, Barbara, had been forced to drop out of high school at 15 to become her full-time caregiver. For 40 years, Barbara had no life, no friends, no future. Just a grueling cycle of minimum wage jobs and catering to a sister who was demanding, ungrateful, and verbally abusive. Then a miracle happened. Their brother died and left them $350,000. They bought a house. They traveled. But Debbie spent money like water on toys and internet scams. Within 3 years, every single penny was gone. They were facing foreclosure. Barbara realized she had to go back to scrubbing floors while enduring her sister and her relentless demands. One night, after a physical fight over money, Barbara laid in bed, listening to Debbie snore. The psychological weight of 40 years of imprisonment crashed down on her. She took a gun and shot her sister once in the head. She could not process what she had done, so she wrapped the body, filled the house with air fresheners, and lived with her sister and the rotting corpse for 6 weeks before fleeing to Virginia Beach. When we found Barbara cashing Social Security checks, she initially lied, but then she crumbled. She sobbed, wishing she could take it back. Barbara was not a monster like Marlene. Barbara was a tragedy. She took a plea deal for 15 years for manslaughter. 2 different victims, 2 different killers. One driven by a selfish, venomous obsession, the other by utter, total exhaustion of the human spirit. I tell you, the human mind is a terrifying place to wander, and once you cross that line into taking a life, there is no coming back. Humans are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine. I tell you, when you look into the abyss of human nature, for as long as I have, you realize that true evil is rarely some grand cinematic masterpiece. It is usually born of petty jealousy, a hollow soul, and profound lack of simple human decency. We are talking about the town of Prescott in Arizona, a quiet place where the vast forest hides the sky and sometimes it hides the dead. Pamela Pitts was only 19 years old. She was a beautiful and vibrant young woman with a bright smile, the oldest of 4 children, a girl who loved her family dearly and was just trying to find her place in this chaotic world. She had a gentle and trusting heart, which unfortunately made her the perfect target for a human parasite. During the summer of 1988, she moved in with a girl named Shelley Norgard. Now, Shelley was an awkward individual, a girl burdened with severe abandonment issues, a stern father she wanted to avoid, and a dark void inside her that she expected others to fill. Pam became her emotional crutch. But Pam was young and alive. She talked about attending beauty college. She had many friends. She had a boyfriend named Bobby, and eventually she began to realize that Shelley was a sinking ship pulling her under. Pam wanted to move back home to her family. That desire for independence was her fatal mistake. On the night of September 16th, 1988, Pam vanished without a single trace. 13 long days later, on September 29th, a target shooter at a local recreation spot known as Gordo's Pit found a pile of burned garbage. Poking out of that charred and horrific mess was a human arm. The body had been burned entirely beyond recognition. Dental records eventually confirmed the absolute nightmare for family. It was Pam. My. You look at a crime scene like that, a 19-year-old girl reduced to ash and debris, and you know immediately that you are dealing with someone who harbors a deep and intensely personal hatred. This was not a random encounter with a stranger in the woods. This was an eradication of a human being. When investigators sat down to talk to Shelley, she played the role of a worried and innocent roommate. She spun a web of lies. But she conveniently left out the glaring fact that the car, the purse, and all the personal belongings of Pam were still sitting at their house. You have to be kidding me. You report your roommate missing, but you completely forget to mention she left her entire life behind. Shelley claimed she was just driving around town between 4 in the afternoon and 7 in the morning. Her boyfriend at the time, a young man named Ray Clerks, could not fully corroborate her fabricated timeline. Friends reported that Shelley was enraged that night, actively hunting for Pam, blaming Pam for everything wrong in her miserable existence. Shelley even liked to brag to acquaintances about how to dispose of a human body by burning it or throwing it down an abandoned mine shaft. But physical evidence was completely non-existent. Rumors quickly took over the small town. People whispered endlessly about satanic cults and ritualistic sacrifices in the forest. I tell you, people watch entirely too many movies. It is never a shadowy cult. It is always a very flawed and very selfish individual standing right in front of you. The police chased those empty rumors. They interrogated a girl named Melinda, who had a minor physical altercation with Pam. They even dragged that poor girl before an investigative grand jury. But it was all smoke and mirrors. With no evidence, the investigation stalled, and the case went ice cold. 3 agonizing years passed by. Then, on May 25, 1991, some college students exploring a cave system stumbled upon a vertical mine shaft. At the dark bottom of that drop was a decomposing body wrapped tightly in a waterbed liner, shot directly in the head. It was Ray Clerks. He was only 24 years old. He was a responsible young man, an aspiring commercial airline pilot who was actively planning to move to California and leave Shelley behind forever. Does this pattern sound familiar to you? You try to leave Shelley Norgard, and you end up dead. The psychology is terrifyingly simple. She was a woman who could not bear the perceived rejection of abandonment, so she chose to destroy the things she claimed to love rather than let them walk away. But this time, Shelley made careless mistakes. Investigators found a single fingerprint belonging to Shelley on a flashlight dropped down the mine shaft. They walked up to her car and smelled the undeniable and sickening stench of death in the trunk, eventually finding blood that matched the exact blood type of Ray. The evidence was overwhelming. She was arrested on June 4th, 1991. 2 years later, she decided to accept a plea deal and pled guilty to murder in the second degree. She told the court they were stargazing. He told her he was taking his dogs and leaving her, and she simply snapped, shot him in the head, wrapped him up, and threw him away like discarded garbage. She was sentenced to 20 years in the state prison. But the spirit of Pam Pitts was still waiting patiently for justice. Her grieving family waited over 2 decades. In March of 2011, a dedicated cold case detective finally reopened the dusty file. Shelley was about to be released from prison for the murder of Ray. They went to visit her. They rattled her psychological cage just to see what would fall out, and then they meticulously monitored her prison phone calls. 97 separate phone calls were recorded and analyzed. For years, nothing materialized. Shelley was released in May of 2011. She secured a job, got married, and assumed a new identity as Shelley Harmon. She truly believed she had gotten away with the perfect murder. But in the spring of 2017, that same detective sat down and listened to those 97 calls all over again. He heard a very specific conversation between Shelley and her father. Her father expressed concern about the renewed investigation, and he stated clearly that he was still in the dark because she had never actually told him what happened on that terrible night in 1988. And on that recorded telephone line, there was only a heavy silence. The deafening and cowardly silence of a killer who suddenly realizes the walls are closing in on her. Fabricated life. On June 2nd, 2017, investigators finally made their move and arrested her for the murder of Pam. The case was entirely circumstantial and incredibly difficult to prosecute after 30 long years, with many original witnesses either deceased or struggling with fading memories. To spare the devastated family the absolute agony of a trial that might result in an acquittal, a strategic plea deal was struck. On March 1st, 2021, Shelley stood before a judge and verbally admitted that she tracked Pam down at the party, tackled her to the ground in a blind rage, and brutally beat her until she simply stopped breathing. She selfishly refused to admit that she subsequently burned the body to hide her heinous crime. Because of the complexities of the legal system, she was given credit for the 20 years she had already served for killing Ray, plus the time she waited in the county jail. She walked out of that courtroom a completely free woman at 50 years old. I tell you, the human justice system is a man-made instrument, and sometimes it is painfully and fundamentally imperfect. Two young and promising people, Pam and Ray, had their bright futures violently stolen by a deeply broken woman who could not bear the simple thought of being left alone. Shelley walked out of those doors free, but she will carry the dark and heavy stain of those two innocent souls on her conscience for the rest of her miserable life. And the family of Pam, they walk forward with a beautiful memory of a girl who truly loved life, a relentless fireball of joy whose brilliant light can never be entirely extinguished by the selfish darkness of another. Humans are peculiar creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine, but the oldest motive in the book is the one of layers of duct tape wrapped tightly around their faces. This revelation reinforced the detective's belief that the primary intent of the perpetrators was to ensure the victims did not survive, suggesting a highly targeted and deliberate plan rather than a simple robbery gone wrong. As the investigation continued, detectives received a routine but significant notification from a life insurance company. It revealed that there was a substantial life insurance policy on the couple, totaling at least $1 million, and one of the primary beneficiaries was Chow Tran himself. On June 13, 2012, detectives met with Chow at the Arlington Police Station to discuss the business operations and the insurance policy. Chow explained that because the commercial sewing business was registered in his in-laws' names, the insurance policies were put in place to ensure the family could continue running the business and support the grandchildren if any tragedy were to occur. When questioned about his whereabouts on the night of the incident, Chow and the other family members provided consistent alibis, explaining that they had remained at the birthday gathering and played cards until late into the night. The police collected DNA samples and fingerprints from Chow and other close relatives to compare against the evidence collected from the crime scene. While the laboratory successfully developed a clear DNA profile from the saliva on the recovered marijuana cigarette, the profile did not match any of the family members. Furthermore, when run through the National DNA Database known as CODIS, there were no matching profiles found. This development was a significant setback for the investigation. It suggested that the person who left the DNA might not have had a previous felony conviction, or perhaps they were a minor whose genetic profile had not yet been entered into the system. For more than 2 years, despite interviewing over 50 people and checking every available lead, the case grew quiet, remaining unresolved but never forgotten by the dedicated detectives. The breakthrough came unexpectedly in the year 2015. A young man named Willie Guillory was arrested in Houston for a felony offense involving the theft of a horse. Because a felony conviction in the state of Texas requires the submission of a DNA sample to the CODIS database, Willie's profile was officially entered into the system. Almost immediately, the system identified a perfect match between Willie Guillory's DNA and the genetic material recovered from a marijuana cigarette left at the Arlington crime scene 3 years prior. At the time of the murders in 2012, Willie had been only 16 years old, which explained why his profile had not been in the national database. Armed with his critical match, detectives brought Willie in for questioning. When confronted with the scientific evidence placing him inside the apartment, the young man became emotional and confessed to his involvement. However, he insisted that he had not acted alone. He explained that in 2012, he had been living with his uncle, a 49-year-old man named Bobby Guillory. According to Willie, his uncle had told him that they were going to travel to Arlington to perform a job, and Willie felt he had no choice but to accompany him. Willie detailed how they had traveled from Houston to Arlington on June 9th, 2012, he claimed that his uncle possessed a key to the apartment, which allowed them to enter without forcing the door. Their instructions were to intentionally throw items around and stage the scene to make it look like a local gang had committed a robbery. Willie admitted to smoking a small portion of a marijuana cigarette and leaving it behind as part of the staging process. Willie described how, when the elderly couple returned home, he had tried to prevent Hong Lee from escaping or making noise, while his uncle, Bobby, confronted and incapacitated Long Nguyen. Afterward, they used duct tape to bind the couple and move them into the bedroom closet before leaving the scene and returning to Houston. When detectives asked why they had targeted the specific couple, Willie revealed a crucial piece of the puzzle. He stated that the entire act was a murder-for-hire plot organized by a prominent acquaintance of his uncle named Daphne Wright, the very spiritual advisor Chow Tran, and Hong Lee had hired years earlier. Willie claimed that Daphne had given his uncle the key to the apartment and had ordered the act because the family owed her a substantial amount of money. With this astonishing information, the police formally charged Willie Guillory and began their search for Bobby Guillory and a deeper understanding of Daphne Wright. Detectives discovered that Daphne operated a highly successful spiritual consulting practice in Houston. She was a married mother of 3 daughters and was described as a strong, direct, and commanding figure who managed her household and her business with an iron hand. When investigators initially visited her home, she confirmed that she knew Chow Tran as a client, but declined to provide specific details regarding their financial transactions. When asked what occurred when clients failed to pay for her services, she confidently asserted that her clients always paid. On December 16, 2015, detectives traveled to Katy, Texas, to arrest 52-year-old Bobby Guillory. Bobby had no prior criminal record and had recently fallen on hard times after being laid off from his job. Confronted with the evidence and his nephew's confession, Bobby agreed to speak with the investigators. Bobby expressed deep remorse and fear during his interview. He claimed that Daphne Wright had taken advantage of his financial desperation, offering him $10,000 to carry out the deed. He explained that Daphne functioned like a spiritual lender, charging immense fees to her clients on credit. Over the course of her consultations with Chow Tran and Hong Lee, their unpaid balance had reportedly escalated to a sum between $250,000 and $280,000. According to Bobby, when the family was unable to pay the ballooning debt, Daphne discovered that there were major life insurance policies active on the couple. She allegedly proposed that by ending their lives, the family could collect on the insurance policies and finally settle their outstanding debts with her. When detectives asked Bobby how Daphne had obtained the key to the apartment, Bobby claimed that Daphne had received it directly from Chow Tran. This allegation of internal involvement deeply surprised the detectives, who had built a supportive relationship with Chow and his family over the years of the investigation. Following Bobby's arrest, detectives obtained a search warrant for Daphne's Houston home. During the search, they uncovered detailed financial ledgers. These documents revealed that Daphne charged clients tens of thousands of dollars for various spiritual services, including the removal and application of curses. Daphne was subsequently arrested and charged. Her husband, Howard, cooperated fully with the police, maintaining that he had no knowledge of any criminal activity and believed in his wife's complete innocence. Daphne herself declined to make any statements without her legal counsel present. To strengthen their case against the primary organizers of the crime, prosecutors subpoenaed Chow Tran's financial records. They discovered that following the passing of his in-laws, the commercial sewing business had closed and Chow had purchased a new home. Facing potential charges, Chow and his attorney negotiated a structured agreement with the prosecution. Chow provided his perspective on the events, describing how he and his mother-in-law had become deeply fearful of Daphne. He explained that because they believed in Daphne's spiritual capabilities, They feared she could place a devastating curse on their family if they failed to pay her. Chow claimed that in a desperate bid to protect the family from spiritual harm, his mother-in-law, Hong Li, had suggested sacrificing her own life so the family could collect the insurance money to satisfy the debt. He claimed Daphne embraced the idea and insisted that both elderly parents must pass away so that the payouts from both policies would fully cover the outstanding balance. Following the tragedy, Chow admitted to paying Daphne a significant amount of cash from the insurance proceeds. He also admitted to leaving the apartment key under an outdoor mat, knowing that Daphne would retrieve it. While investigators found the claim that Hong Li had volunteered for such a fate highly improbable, the prosecution recognized that Chow's testimony was essential to securing a conviction against Daphne Wright, whom they viewed as the central organizer of the entire plot. In exchange for his full and truthful testimony at trial, Chow was offered immunity from prosecution. On August 26, 2019, the trial of Daphne Wright commenced. Chow Tran took the stand as the key witness for the state, portraying Daphne as an exceptionally greedy individual who would stop at nothing to secure her payment. The defense counsel vigorously challenged Chow's credibility, arguing that there was no written documentation or digital footprint of a $280,000 debt. They suggested that Chow had acted out of personal financial self-interest to secure the insurance money for himself, pointing out that he had received complete immunity despite his admitted involvement in coordinating the keys. In September 2019, after careful deliberation, the jury reached its verdict. Daphne Wright was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Bobby and Willie Guillory also faced justice for their respective roles in the tragedy. For the investigators who had spent years dedicated to bringing resolve to the family of Long Nguyen and Hong Li, the conclusion of the legal proceedings brought a mixture of peace and reflection. While some aspects of the resolution remained complex, the truth had ultimately been brought to light through diligent police work, scientific advancement, and an unwavering commitment to justice for two beloved members of the community. The memory of Long and Hong remained cherished by those who knew them, serving as a reminder of the enduring strength of family bonds and the ultimate triumph of truth over darkness. The story of the Nguyen family begins not in the sprawling, sun-drenched suburbs of North Texas, but across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. In the year 2000, Long Nguyen and his beloved wife, Hong Lu, made the monumental decision to leave their familiar life in Vietnam. They were not merely moving to a new country. They were carrying with them a treasure trove of time-honored traditions, an unwavering work ethic, and a deep, abiding love for their 3 children and grandchildren. For many decades, the city of Arlington, Texas, had been a beacon of hope for Vietnamese immigrants. The first major wave of families had arrived after the autumn of 1975, settling into the heart of Tarrant County. Over the years, they established a vibrant, closely knit community. They built businesses, temples, churches, and neighborhoods where the sweet aroma of traditional spices mingled seamlessly with the warm breeze of the Lone Star State. Long and Hong chose the city carefully, studying its geography and recognizing it as a fertile ground where their children could receive a grand education and their grandchildren could grow up with endless opportunities. To establish their footing in this new land, Long and Hong founded a commercial sewing business. It was a true family endeavor, while the elderly couple managed the intricate craftsmanship of the garments. They relied heavily on their 38-year-old son-in-law, Chow Tran. Chow spoke fluent English, possessing a charismatic charm that made him the perfect public face for the business. He negotiated with major contractors, managed client relationships, and handled the daily operations of their workshop. For nearly a decade, their hard work bore abundant fruit. The family secured prestigious contracts with commercial giants, including the world-renowned Disney Corporation. Their spacious workshop hummed with the steady, comforting rhythm of sewing machines, a symphony of progress that symbolized their realization of the American dream. They were a prominent, highly respected family in the local Asian community, known for their sweet dispositions, generosity, and willingness to help anyone in need. The shadow of misfortune. However, the path to prosperity is rarely a straight line. By the year 2011, the family's steady stream of good fortune began to falter. A shifting global economy and intense competition led to the loss of their lucrative contract with Disney. The once bustling sewing workshop grew quiet, and the financial pressure began to weigh heavily on the household. In traditional Vietnamese culture, when a family encounters a sudden barrage of obstacles, it is not uncommon to seek spiritual guidance. For thousands of years, people have believed in the protective power of ancestral blessings and spiritual alignment when faced with the threat of bankruptcy or emotional distress. Many families turn to a spiritual advisor to perform traditional rituals designed to ward off negativity and restore balance. Hoping to find a solution, Chow Tran and his mother-in-law, Hong Lu, began searching through the local Vietnamese newspapers. Within the classified sections, they discovered an advertisement for a spiritual advisor named Daphne Wright, who operated out of Houston, located approximately 250 miles away. The advertisement promised that she possessed the unique ability to lift heavy curses, bestow good fortune, and protect businesses from financial ruin. Encouraged by Hong, Chow made contact with Daphne and arranged a formal consultation at her residence in Houston. The family was filled with a sense of hope. They believed that with the right spiritual guidance, they could revitalize their sewing business and protect their family legacy. Daphne agreed to perform a series of elaborate rituals, promising that prosperity would soon return to their doorstep. An unexpected discovery. A year passed, but the financial recovery they had prayed for remained elusive. Instead of a returned prosperity, a quiet tension settled over the family. On the 10th of June, 2012, at exactly 7:29 in the morning, the peace of a quiet Arlington neighborhood was broken when emergency dispatchers received an urgent call from Chow Tran. He requested a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, explaining that his family had gathered outside their apartment and felt a deep, instinctual worry that something was wrong. Officer Weller, a dedicated officer with 14 years of experience on the force, was the first to arrive at the apartment complex. At first glance, the scene did not resemble a typical welfare check. The entire extended family was standing outside the residence in the early morning air, looking visibly shaken and too terrified to step inside. They pointed out that a window to the apartment was slightly open, which was highly unusual for the elderly couple. Upon entering the apartment, Officer Weller immediately noticed that the living room was in complete disarray, displaying the classic signs of a sudden intrusion. The furniture was shifted, and personal belongings were scattered across the floor. Calling out to the residents, the officer received no reply. After checking the living room, kitchen, and bathroom, only the master bedroom remained. Inside the bedroom, the room appeared quiet. Officer Weller turned to leave, but as a flashlight beam swept across the wall near a small closet, the officer noticed faint hand smudges next to the door. Pausing, guided by a professional duty to leave no stone unturned, the officer gently opened the closet door. Inside, the elderly couple was found. They were completely unresponsive, bound securely with heavy duct tape. Recognizing that they were beyond medical help, Officer Weller stepped back into the living room, calmed the initial shock, and immediately contacted the dispatch center to request a supervisor and the specialized homicide unit. The investigation begins. Within the hour, the veteran detectives of the Arlington Police Department arrived at the scene. Among them was a seasoned homicide investigator with 21 years of experience, who recognized that this was one of the most complex and sensitive cases the department had faced. At first, the The physical evidence suggested a robbery that had escalated into violence. On the living room coffee table, investigators discovered a plate with crushed prescription medication and a partially consumed, hand-rolled cigarette. More intriguingly, a light blue bandana was found wrapped around a glass bottle. To the detectives, this appeared to be a deliberate signature, potentially associated with local youth groups or street gangs known to operate in the wider region. The investigators immediately consulted with the department's Specialized Gang Intelligence Unit to analyze the significance of the blue bandana. However, as the initial processing of the scene progressed, the experienced detectives began to feel a sense of skepticism. The scene appeared almost too orchestrated, as if someone had deliberately left behind classic stereotypes of criminal activity to redirect the focus of the police. To gather more context, the detectives conducted an initial interview with Chow Tran, who acted as the primary spokesperson for the family due to his strong command of the English language. Chow explained that the entire family had spent the previous evening celebrating his father-in-law's birthday. The elderly couple had enjoyed a wonderful evening, staying at the family gathering until approximately 10:30 in the evening, when another relative drove them safely back to their apartment. When asked about potential valuables in the home, Chow mentioned that while some members of the older generation preferred to keep their savings close at hand rather than utilizing modern banking institutions, the sewing business had been struggling significantly, and there was very little money kept in the residence. He emphasized that Long and Hong were incredibly sweet, gentle, and hard-working individuals who had no known enemies in the community. Technical analysis and a sudden turn. On the 11th of June, 2012, the medical examiner conducted a thorough examination to determine the precise cause of the couple's passing. The findings revealed that the primary cause of death was oxygen deprivation, resulting from the extensive layers of duct tape applied to their faces. The sheer intent required to perform such an act convinced investigators that this was not a simple burglary gone wrong. It was a targeted, deeply personal offense. While detectives continued to explore the gang theory, they received an unexpected telephone call from a national life insurance provider. The representative informed Detective Stewart that the deceased couple carried a highly substantial life insurance policy valued at approximately $1 million. When the detective inquired about the named beneficiaries of this policy, the company confirmed that Chow Tran was designated to receive a major portion of the funds. On the 13th of June, 2012, detectives invited Chow back to the police station to discuss the business operations and the existence of the insurance policies. Chow was highly cooperative, explaining that because the commercial sewing business was registered under his in-laws' names, the insurance policies were established to ensure the family could continue operating the business and support the grandchildren if either elder were to pass away. He provided a detailed timeline of his whereabouts on the night of the incident, which was fully supported by the rest of the family members who had been playing cards together until late into the night. The police department collected genetic profiles and fingerprint samples from Chow and all family members, comparing them directly to the evidence recovered from the apartment, including the hand-rolled cigarette found on the coffee table. When the laboratory results returned, the genetic material did not match Chow, any family member, or any existing profile within the National Combined Deoxyribonucleic Acid Index System. For 2 long years, the investigation continued with dedication, but without a matching genetic profile in the national database, the leads began to dry up. The case grew quiet, but the detectives refused to let the memory of the sweet elderly couple fade away. The breakthrough in 2015. The turning point in the case arrived unexpectedly in the autumn of 2015. A young man named Willie Guillory, who was 16 years old at the time of the original incident in 2012, was arrested for a felony offense involving the theft of a horse near Houston, Texas. Because he had transitioned into adulthood and was convicted of a felony, His genetic profile was officially entered into the national database for the first time. Within weeks, the system generated an automatic alert. The genetic profile from Willie Guillory was a perfect match for the genetic material recovered from the hand-rolled cigarette left on the coffee table inside the Arlington apartment 3 years earlier. On the 17th of October, 2015, investigators brought Willie Guillory in for questioning. Initially, Willie denied any knowledge of the city of Arlington, suggesting that perhaps his genetic material had been misplaced. However, as the detectives presented the indisputable scientific evidence, the young man became visibly emotional and confessed to his involvement, revealing that he had not acted alone. Willie explained that in the summer of 2012, his 49-year-old uncle, Bobby Guillory, had asked him to assist with a task in Arlington. On the 9th of June, 2012, the uncle and nephew made the 3-hour drive from Houston. Willie claimed that Bobby possessed an actual key to the elderly couple's apartment, which allowed them to enter without forcing the door. According to Willie, the plan was to systematically disarrange the apartment to create the appearance of a random burglary. They brought specific items, including the glass bottle, the blue bandana, and the hand-rolled cigarette, to intentionally mislead investigators into believing that a local street gang was responsible. When the elderly couple returned home, a physical altercation ensued, during which Bobby utilized a blunt object to quiet the resistance, after which they secured the couple inside the closet and departed back to Houston. Unraveling the mastermind, when asked why they had targeted a gentle elderly couple whom they had never met, Willie revealed a startling detail. He explained that the entire plan was a murder-for-hire plot orchestrated by a woman named Daphne Wright, who was a close associate of his Uncle Bobby. Willie stated that Daphne claimed the family owed her an enormous sum of money and that she wanted the debt settled permanently. With this crucial information, the focus of the investigation shifted directly to Daphne Wright. Detectives discovered that she was a popular spiritual advisor based in Houston, married with 3 daughters, and considered the dominant force within her household. On the 16th of December, 2015, detectives traveled to Katy, Texas, to apprehend 52-year-old Bobby Guillory. Confronted with the search warrant for his genetic profile and the confession of his nephew, Bobby broke down and admitted his role in the events. He expressed deep remorse, explaining that in 2011, he had been laid off from his job and was facing severe financial hardship, desperate to avoid homelessness. He agreed to Daphne's proposal when she offered him a payment of $10,000 to carry out the deed. Bobby provided investigators with a deeper understanding of the financial dynamics at play. He explained that Chow Tran and Hong Lu had become deeply dependent on Daphne's spiritual services. Over the course of a year, as their business struggled, they continued to request rituals on credit, eventually accumulating a massive debt of between $250,000 and $280,000. Recognizing that the family could not pay this enormous sum, Daphne learned of the substantial life insurance policies. According to Bobby, Daphne conceived a plan to collect on the policies to satisfy the debt. When Bobby asked how she had obtained the key to the apartment, Daphne revealed that she had received it directly from Chow Tran. The path to justice. On the 31st of August, 2016, detectives executed a search warrant at Daphne Wright's residence in Houston, resulting in her arrest. Inside the home, investigators discovered detailed financial ledgers. These documents revealed that Daphne had been charging clients astronomical fees, ranging from $10,000 to $40,000, for individual spiritual services and rituals. To build an airtight case against the primary coordinator, prosecutors entered into formal discussions with Chow Tran and his legal representative. Chow provided a detailed account of the immense psychological pressure the family experienced. He explained that they genuinely believed in Daphne's spiritual authority, fearing that if they failed to pay her, she would place a devastating curse upon their children and grandchildren. Chow claimed that his mother-in-law, Honglu, out of profound and selfless love for her family, had suggested sacrificing her own well-being so the family could collect the insurance funds to pay the debt and lift the spiritual burden. However, investigators and prosecutors remained highly skeptical of this narrative, believing that the plan was fueled by financial desperation and manipulation. Ultimately, to ensure that the individual who organized and financed the crime was held fully accountable, the state offered Chow Tran immunity from prosecution in exchange for his complete and truthful testimony during the trial. The formal trial of Daphne Wright commenced on the 26th of August, 2019. Chow Tran took the stand, describing Daphne as an incredibly greedy and controlling individual who would stop at nothing to secure her financial demands. Although the defense argued that Chow was a primary participant who benefited financially from the insurance proceeds, the jury carefully weighed the extensive physical evidence, the testimonies of Willie and Bobby Guillory, and the financial ledgers. In September 2019, the jury returned a verdict of guilty for capital murder. Daphne Wright was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that she could no longer exploit vulnerable families. Bobby and Willie Guillory were likewise held legally accountable for their respective roles in the tragedy, a legacy of resilience and community. While the legal proceedings brought a sense of closure to the city of Arlington, the true heart of the story lies in the resilience of the local community and the enduring bond of family. The tragedy served as a profound educational lesson for many immigrant families, highlighting the importance of seeking legitimate financial counseling, relying on established community support systems, and protecting loved ones from manipulative influences. The Vietnamese community of Arlington rallied around the remaining members of the family, offering comfort, spiritual healing, and solidarity. Neighbors and business owners came together to honor the memory of Long Nguyen and Hong Lu, remembering them not for the quiet tragedy of their final days, but for their decade of warmth, their beautiful craftsmanship, and the immense love they poured into building a bright future for their descendants. The story stands as an inspiring testament to the dedicated detectives who spent years pursuing the truth, refusing to let a cold case remain unsolved. It reminds us that even when faced with the absolute darkest aspects of human greed, the light of truth, the strength of community, and the warmth of familial love will always prevail, guiding us toward a peaceful and just tomorrow. The morning sun over Arlington, Texas, always had a way of painting the suburban landscape in shades of warm amber and soft gold. It was a city of quiet intersections, bustling strip malls, and a vibrant tapestry of cultures that had woven themselves into the very soil of Tarrant County. Over the decades, among these, the Vietnamese community stood as a beacon of resilience and entrepreneurial spirit, having established deep roots since the late 1970s. They brought with them not just their dreams, but their heritage, their culinary secrets, and an unwavering devotion to family. Detective Stewart, a man with 21 years of service in the Homicide Division, appreciated the quiet mornings. He was a veteran who had seen the city grow, change, and sometimes stumble. Yet, he maintained a gentle, almost whimsical sense of humor about the daily quirks of police work, often sharing a laugh over lukewarm coffee with his colleagues. To him, the badge was not just a symbol of authority, but a commitment to keeping the peace in a community he deeply loved. On the morning of June 10th, 2012, at exactly 7:29 in the morning, the peace of a quiet Sunday was gently interrupted. An emergency call came through to the dispatchers. The caller was 38-year-old Chow Tran, a Vietnamese immigrant who spoke with a hurried, anxious tone. He was requesting a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, Long Nguyen and Hong Li. An unexpected Sunday call. Chow Tran explained to the dispatcher that his father-in-law, who was in his early 70s, and his mother-in-law had not been answering their phone. The concern in his voice was palpable, a natural reaction for a family that was closely knit. He mentioned that his wife and teenage son had gone to the apartment to knock on the door, but the silence from within was deafening. They had noticed an open window, and the blinds were slightly askew, which was highly unusual for the meticulous elderly couple. Officer Weller, a dedicated officer with 14 years of experience, was the first to arrive at the scene. He was a cheerful man who prided himself on his approachable nature, always ready with a smile for the neighborhood kids. But as he pulled up to the apartment complex, he noticed the entire family standing outside, their faces clouded with worry. It was far too early in the morning for a typical welfare check, and the sheer number of gathered relatives suggested that something was amiss. Upon entering the residence, the atmosphere shifted. The apartment was in a state of disarray, suggesting that a burglary might have taken place. Officer Weller called out, his voice echoing through the quiet rooms. "Arlington Police, is anyone home?" There was no answer. He systematically checked the living room, the small kitchen, and the bathroom. Everything seemed empty, yet the lingering feeling of disorder remained. He turned his attention to the master bedroom. Initially, nothing caught his eye. He was about to turn around, thinking perhaps the couple had simply gone for an early morning walk to enjoy the cool Texas air, when his flashlight illuminated the wall next to a small closet. The discovery in the closet. There on the painted wall were faint hand smudges. It was a small detail, but one that a seasoned officer could not ignore. A quiet instinct told him to proceed with caution. He reached out and slowly opened the closet door. Inside, the reality of the situation became clear. Long Nguyen and Hong Lee were there, bound with silver duct tape around their wrists and ankles. Their heads and mouths were covered in layers of the same heavy tape. They were motionless. In that split second, Officer Weller realized they had passed away. The scene was incredibly solemn, a stark contrast to the bright Sunday morning waiting just beyond the threshold. Weller stepped back into the living room, taking a moment to steady his breathing. He picked up his radio and requested a supervisor in the crime scene unit. When Detective Stewart arrived, he felt profound sadness for the sweet, elderly couple who were known by everyone in the neighborhood as kind, generous, and hardworking. They had moved to the United States in the year 2000, seeking the American dream, establishing a commercial sewing business that once produced garments for major brands like Disney. They had no known enemies. Unraveling the clues. As the crime scene investigators meticulously processed the apartment, they discovered several unusual items that seemed out of place for a simple burglary. On the coffee table sat a plate with crushed prescription pills, and nearby was a partially smoked marijuana cigarette. Most puzzling of all was a light blue bandana wrapped neatly around a beer bottle, left on the kitchen counter like a calling card. Detective Stewart consulted with the gang unit, knowing that some local youth gangs use blue bandanas as their signature color. "It almost looks too perfect," Stewart remarked, scratching his chin as he looked at the bottle. "Like someone wanted us to find this exact clue." Indeed, the scene felt staged. While a gang-related robbery was a viable theory, the level of targeted restraint used on the victims suggested a deeply personal motive rather than a random crime. To gain more insight, Stewart interviewed Chow Tran, the son-in-law who acted as the primary spokesperson for the family due to his fluent English. Chow explained that the family had gathered the previous evening to celebrate his father-in-law's birthday. The elderly couple had enjoyed themselves immensely, leaving the party around 10:30 in the evening to return home. Chow also revealed that while the sewing business had once been lucrative, they had recently lost their major contracts, and the business was struggling. They believe a streak of bad luck had cursed their endeavors. To counter this, Chow and his mother-in-law had sought the services of a spiritual advisor named Daphne Wright, who lived in Houston, some 250 miles away. The shadow of the spiritual advisor. In many traditional cultures, seeking the guidance of a spiritual advisor during times of financial distress or personal turmoil was a common practice. Daphne Wright advertised her ability to remove bad luck and lift curses, promising to restore prosperity to those who believed in her mystical practices. Chow and Hong Lee had visited Daphne in Houston, participating in rituals that left them feeling hopeful. However, the business did not recover. Instead, the family found themselves sinking deeper into debt. Bobby Guillory, an acquaintance of Daphne, later revealed that the debt had ballooned to an astronomical amount, somewhere between $250,000 and $280,000. Daphne, it turned out, operated more like a financial lender than a spiritual healer, and she was determined to collect what she believed was owed to her. As the investigation progressed into 2015, the case had grown cold, leaving the detectives frustrated but determined. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young man named Willie Guillory was arrested for a horse theft felony, which required his DNA to be entered into the national database. His profile matched the DNA found on the marijuana cigarette left at the staged crime scene. A web of deception and redemption. When questioned, 16-year-old Willie broke down and confessed. He revealed that his uncle, Bobby Guillory, had recruited him for a job in Arlington under the direction of Daphne Wright. They had been given a key to the apartment to make the entry look effortless, staging the burglary with the bandana and pills to mislead the police. Bobby Guillory was soon arrested and confessed as well, pointing the finger directly at Daphne as the mastermind who had promised him $10,000 for the deed. He explained that Daphne had discovered the elderly couple held substantial life insurance policies, totaling at least $1 million, with Chow Tran named as a beneficiary. The revelation of Chow Tran's potential involvement shocked the investigators. Chow had initially presented himself as a grieving relative, but financial records showed he had recently purchased a new home after receiving insurance payout. When confronted, Chow, accompanied by his attorney, painted a picture of psychological manipulation. He claimed that Daphne held immense spiritual control over his mind and body, making him feel powerless to resist her demands. To secure a conviction against Daphne Wright, the prosecutors made a difficult decision to offer Chow Tran immunity in exchange for his full testimony. During the trial in August of 2019, Chow testified extensively about Daphne's greed and the immense pressure she placed on his family, depicting her as a modern-day mystical extortionist. Ultimately, the jury found Daphne Wright guilty of capital murder, sentencing her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While the resolution brought a sense of justice to the community, the investigators remained mindful of the complex human emotions, cultural pressures, and desperate choices that had led to such a tragedy. The story of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee served as a solemn reminder of the values of family, the dangers of misplaced trust, and the enduring pursuit of truth. The summer sun of the state of Texas has a way of turning the concrete of Arlington into a shimmering mirage, where the heat rises in visible waves and the air smells of sweet grass and dry earth. In the year 2000, a quiet family arrived in this bustling corner of the world, carrying with them nothing but a few suitcases, a profound sense of hope, and a treasury of ancient traditions from their homeland of Vietnam. Long Nguyen and his beloved wife, Hong Lu, were people who measured their wealth not in paper currency, but in the laughter of their grandchildren and the steady, rhythmic hum of sewing machines. For many years, their lives in the United States resembled a beautifully woven tapestry. They established a commercial garment business, renting a modest space where the bright fabrics of dreams were transformed into tangible realities. Long was a man of gentle patience, often seen with a measuring tape draped over his shoulders like a priestly stole, while Hong possessed an eye for detail that could spot a misaligned stitch from across a crowded room. To help them navigate the unfamiliar waters of American commerce, they relied heavily on their son-in-law, Chow Tran, a young man of 38 years who possessed the gift of fluent English and a charming, easygoing demeanor that made contractors feel instantly at ease. Under Chow's management, the sewing business flourished, They secured prestigious contracts, including a highly lucrative agreement to manufacture garments for a global entertainment giant, bringing a sense of immense pride to the entire immigrant community. In the quiet evenings, the family would gather around the large wooden dining table in their apartment, sharing bowls of fragrant noodle soup and exchanging stories of their daily triumphs. They believed they had captured their own slice of the American dream, a gentle and honest prosperity built on a foundation of hard work and mutual respect. However, the tides of fortune are notoriously fickle. By the year 2011, the grand contract that had sustained their business came to an end, and a shadow of quiet worry began to settle over the household. The sewing machines, once singing with constant activity, now sat silent for hours at a time. Long and Hong, traditionalists at heart, began to wonder if some unseen spiritual disharmony had disrupted their lives. In their ancestral culture, when a family faced sudden adversity, it was common to seek the guidance of a spiritual advisor, someone who could harmonize the unseen energies of the world and restore the flow of good fortune. It was during a warm afternoon in the early months of 2011 that Chow Tran, while scanning the pages of a local Vietnamese newspaper, discovered an advertisement for a spiritual healer based in the city of Houston, some 250 miles away. The advertisement promised to lift curses, banish misfortune, and bring abundant luck to those in desperate need. Encouraged by his mother-in-law, who felt a deep, instinctive need to protect her family's legacy, Chow made contact with this mysterious advisor, a woman named Daphne Wright. The journey to Houston was filled with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Daphne Wright, a married mother of 3 daughters, operated her spiritual practice from her suburban home. She was a woman of powerful presence, loud, direct, and commanding, whose household seemed to revolve entirely around her formidable will. When Chow and Hong first met her, they were captivated by her absolute confidence. Daphne performed an elaborate ritual designed to cleanse their business of negative influences, promising that prosperity would soon return to their sewing tables. Yet, as the months passed, the business did not recover. Instead of questioning the efficacy of the rituals, Chow and Hong found themselves caught in a cycle of escalating dependence. Daphne explained that the negative forces surrounding their family were far deeper and more stubborn than she had initially realized, requiring increasingly complex and expensive ceremonies to dismantle. Driven by a profound fear of failure and a deep-seated belief in Daphne's purported spiritual authority, the family began to pay her vast sums of money, often relying on credit extended by the advisor herself. Over the course of a single year, the spiritual debt ballooned to an astronomical sum, somewhere between $250,000 and $280,000. The burden of this debt began to weigh heavily on the family, transforming their once happy home into a place of quiet tension. Unbeknownst to the gentle elders, Long and Hong, a dark plan was beginning to form in the shadows, driven by greed and the cold calculations of those who saw human life as a mere transaction. On the morning of June 10th, 2012, the quiet peace of an Arlington apartment complex was shattered. At 7:29 in the morning, emergency dispatchers received a call from a distressed Chow Tran, requesting a welfare check on his elderly in-laws. Chow explained to the operator that his family had gathered outside the residence, deeply concerned because the window of the apartment was open and there was no response to their repeated knocks. A young patrol officer named Weller was the first to arrive on the scene. Sensing the family's intense anxiety, Weller entered the apartment, searching the rooms one by one. The living room was in complete disarray, presenting the classic signs of a burglary. Drawers were pulled open, compact discs were scattered across the carpet, and furniture was overturned. Weller called out, but his voice was met only with a heavy, suffocating silence. As Weller prepared to leave the bedroom, believing the apartment to be empty, his flashlight caught the faint, chilling sight of hand smudges on the wall, next to a small closet. Summoning his courage, He opened the door, only to make a discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his career. There, inside the confined space, lay the silent forms of Long Nguyen and Hong Lu. They had been bound with duct tape, their heads wrapped tightly in a cruel attempt to silence them forever. When the Arlington homicide detectives arrived, led by veterans with over 21 years of experience, they were deeply shaken by the sheer malice of the scene. On the coffee table in the living room, investigators found a plate of crushed prescription pills and a discarded marijuana cigarette. Most striking of all was a light blue bandana wrapped neatly around a beer bottle, left on the table like a deliberate calling card. To many, it seemed to be the unmistakable signature of a local Vietnamese street gang, perhaps a robbery that had escalated into tragedy. However, the experienced detectives harbored a healthy skepticism. The crime scene felt almost too perfect, too staged, as if someone had meticulously arranged the items to tell a specific story. While forensic teams gathered hair fibers, latent fingerprints, and swabs of biological evidence, detectives began the difficult task of interviewing the grieving family. Chow Tran, acting as the primary spokesperson due to his strong English skills, provided a detailed timeline. He explained that the entire family had been celebrating his father-in-law's birthday the previous evening, playing cards and sharing a joyous meal until past 10 o'clock at night. For more than 2 years, the investigation seemed to stall. The deoxyribonucleic acid profiles recovered from the marijuana cigarette did not match any entries in the Federal Bureau of Investigation's combined deoxyribonucleic acid index system, and no local gang members could be linked to the crime. The case grew cold, leaving the community to heal as best as it could, wrapping the memory of the gentle couple in a quiet, enduring respect. Then, in the autumn of 2015, a bizarre and unrelated event breathed new life into the investigation. A 19-year-old young man named Willie Guillory was arrested in Houston for the felony offense of stealing a horse. Because Willie had been a minor of 16 years at the time of the murders in 2012, his profile had never been entered into a national database. Now, as an adult facing a felony charge, his genetic signature was uploaded into the system, producing an immediate and undeniable match to the marijuana cigarette left at the Arlington crime scene. When detectives brought Willie in for questioning, the young man quickly broke down. He confessed that he had traveled to Arlington in the company of his uncle, a 52-year-old man named Bobby Guillory, who was facing severe financial desperation. Bobby had been promised $10,000 by Daphne Wright to carry out a dark deed. Willie explained that Daphne had provided them with a key to the apartment, instructing them to stage a burglary and ensure that the elderly couple would never speak of their debts again. The final pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place with astonishing speed. Detectives traveled to Katy, Texas, to arrest Bobby Guillory, who confirmed his nephew's account, expressing deep remorse for his actions. Bobby revealed a shocking detail that blindsided the investigators. The key to the apartment had originally come from Chow Tran himself. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the full, tragic scope of the manipulation became clear. Chow Tran, terrified of Daphne's supposed spiritual curses and drowning in debt, had allowed himself to be guided by the advisor's cold machinations. Daphne, learning of a substantial life insurance policy worth over $1 million held by the family, had orchestrated the entire plot to ensure her payment, viewing the lives of the gentle elders as nothing more than an obstacle to her financial gain. Ultimately, justice was served. The perpetrators of the scheme were brought to answer for their actions, and the community was forced to confront the devastating consequences of greed and spiritual manipulation. Yet, in the wake of the tragedy, the memory of Long Nguyen and Hong Lu remained a powerful testament to the enduring values of hard work, family unity, and the search for a better life. Their legacy was not defined by the darkness of their end, but by the warmth, love, and vibrant spirit they had brought from their ancestral home to the heart of Texas leaving a lesson of resilience and the true meaning of family that would inspire generations to. Come. The golden sun rose gently over Arlington, Texas, on the 10th of June 2012. The air was warm and full of the promise of a peaceful Sunday. At 7:29 in the morning, the calm was interrupted by a phone call to the Emergency Dispatch Center. A 38-year-old man named Chow Tran called, his voice carrying a nervous tremor. He asked the police to check on his elderly in-laws, Long Nguyen and Hong Lee. They were in their 70s, a sweet and enduring couple who had built a beautiful life together. Officer Weller, a kind-hearted man with 14 years of experience in the police force, received the call. He drove through the quiet streets, expecting a simple misunderstanding. Perhaps the elderly couple had simply gone for a morning stroll and forgot to lock their door. When he arrived at the apartment complex, he noticed a family gathered outside. They looked worried, standing together in the soft morning light. The front window of the apartment was open, and the curtains danced in the gentle breeze. "I will go take a look," Officer Weller said with a reassuring smile. He wanted to bring peace to the anxious family. He stepped inside the home. The living room was untidy, which was unusual for a family known for their neatness. He called out their names, his voice echoing in the quiet spaces. The kitchen and the bathroom were empty. The only place left to check was the bedroom. He walked in, holding his flashlight, hoping to find Long and Hong safe and sound. Instead, he found a profound sadness. In the small closet, he discovered the beloved couple. They had passed away. To respect their dignity and the gentle nature of this tale, we will not dwell on the sorrowful details of how they were found. Officer Weller stood in the living room, his heart heavy. He had seen many things in his long career, but this moment touched his soul deeply. He calmly reached for his radio and called for his colleagues. The Arlington Homicide Team, led by seasoned and compassionate detectives, arrived shortly after. They looked at the scene and knew they had a significant puzzle to solve. They were determined to find the truth and bring justice to a family that had lost its guiding. Stars. Chapter 2, The American Dream. To understand the depth of this loss, one must understand the beautiful journey of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee. They immigrated to the United States from Vietnam in the year 2000, bringing with them a rich heritage, time-honored traditions, and an immense love for their family. They settled in Arlington, a vibrant city in Tarrant County known for its welcoming community and diverse cultures. Long and Hong were a prominent and beloved family. They were the kind of neighbors who always had a warm smile and a kind word for everyone. They were the roots of a deeply connected family tree. Upon arriving in Texas, they started a commercial sewing business. They worked tirelessly, their hands weaving not just fabric, but a future for their 3 children and their grandchildren. Their son-in-law, Chow, who spoke excellent English, helped them manage the business and communicate with clients. Their hard work blossomed into a magnificent American dream. They secured a wonderful contract to make garments for a massive entertainment company, bringing joy and stability to their home. For nearly a decade, their lives were a testament to the power of dedication and love. However, life is a river with unexpected turns. By the year 2011, their business faced challenges. The major contract ended, and financial worries began to cast a shadow over their bright lives. Seeking hope, they turned to their cultural roots. For thousands of years, many believed in spiritual protectors and guides who could bring good fortune and heal troubled times. Chow and his mother-in-law found an advertisement in a local newspaper. It led them to a woman named Daphne Wright, a spiritual advisor living 250 miles away in Houston. Daphne claimed she could remove bad luck and restore prosperity. Believing she was the key to saving their beloved business, they reached out for her guidance. They traveled to Houston, hopeful that a special ritual would turn their fortunes around. They poured their hearts and their resources into this hope, wishing only to protect the legacy they had built for their children. Chapter 3, The illusion of shadows. Back in the quiet apartment in Arlington, the detectives meticulously gathered clues. They were searching for the invisible thread that would lead them to the truth. At first glance, the apartment looked like it had been visited by mischievous intruders. There was a light blue bandana wrapped around a beverage bottle, a crushed pill on the coffee table, and a medicinal cigarette left behind. The young officers wondered if a local street group was responsible, but the veteran detectives, wise and observant, shook their heads with a gentle, knowing smile. This was a stage. The clues were too perfect, too deliberate. The people who did this wanted the police to look in the wrong direction. The detective spoke with Chow Tran. Chow appeared helpful, acting as the spokesperson for the family. He told the police that on the evening of the 9th of June, the family had gathered for a joyful birthday celebration for long. They ate delicious food, laughed, and played card games until 10 o'clock at night. Chow provided a perfect timeline for everyone. When asked about enemies, Chow insisted that Long and Hong were universally loved. They were sweet, generous, and hard-working. No one could fathom why anyone would wish them harm. The detectives collected evidence, hoping science would shine a light in the dark. They found a tiny trace of evidence on the medicinal cigarette. They sent it to the laboratory, their hearts full of hope, but the results returned with no match. The invisible thread seemed to vanish into thin air. The case grew quiet, but the detectives never forgot Long and Hong. They kept the memory of the sweet couple in their hearts, waiting patiently for the day the truth would reveal itself. Chapter 4, An Unexpected Turn. 3 years passed. The calendar turned October the year 2015. The universe has a funny way of bringing secrets to the light, often through the most unexpected and somewhat comical events. In the city of Houston, a young man named Willie Guillory decided to steal a horse. It was an absurd and foolish choice. He was caught by the local authorities. Because stealing a horse was a serious matter in Texas, Willie had to provide a sample of his information to the authorities. When the laboratory processed his information, a loud bell rang in the police database. The invisible thread from Arlington had finally found its anchor. Willie perfectly matched the trace left on the medicinal cigarette 3 years prior. At the time of the incident in Arlington, Willie had been only 16 years old. That was why his information had not been in the system before. Now, as an adult, his foolish horse theft had unlocked the greatest mystery of the Arlington Police Department. The detectives brought Willie in for a conversation. At first, Willie tried to deny everything. But when the kind yet firm detectives explained how science had placed him in that very apartment, the young man broke down in tears. He confessed to his mistakes, relieving his heavy conscience. He admitted he was there, but he did not do it alone. His Uncle Bobby brought him along. Willie explained the grand illusion. His Uncle Bobby had devised a plan to make the scene look like a random attack by leaving the bandana and the other items. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Willie explained that they were sent by a woman named Daphne Wright. Daphne was a spiritual advisor. She was the one who demanded money, and when the elderly couple could not pay, she orchestrated a terrible plan. Chapter 5, The Web of Deceit. The detectives traveled to Katy, Texas in December of 2015 to speak with 52-year-old Bobby Guillory. Bobby was a man who had never been in trouble with the law before. When the detectives presented their findings, his guilt weighed too heavily on him, and he confessed. Bobby shared a story of desperation. He had lost his job and was struggling to survive when he met Daphne Wright. Daphne knew he was vulnerable and offered him $10,000 to travel to Arlington. She was a woman who lent money for her spiritual services, charging exorbitant amounts. Chow and Hong owed her nearly $280,000. Daphne discovered that the family had large insurance policies, and greed took over her heart. But Bobby revealed one more piece of the puzzle, a piece that left the detectives utterly astonished. When asked how Daphne got the key to the apartment, Bobby replied that she received it from Chow Tran, the son-in-law, the man who had translated for the family. The man who had stood outside the apartment looking worried was part of the scheme. The detectives realized that greed had poisoned the well of a once beautiful family. They turned their attention to Daphne Wright. She was a powerful presence, a woman who commanded a room in her Houston home. She refused to speak with the police, hiding behind her silence. But the detectives were armed with patience and truth. They obtained a warrant and searched her home, finding a hidden book that detailed all her financial transactions. It proved she charged thousands of dollars for her mystical services. The truth was finally stepping into the sunlight. Chapter 6: The Dawn of Justice. To bring the ultimate mastermind to justice, the prosecutors had to make a difficult decision. They needed Chow to testify against Daphne. They offered him a special agreement to speak the truth in court. During the trial in August of 2019, the courtroom listened as the grand illusion was fully dismantled. Chow explained how the family had fallen under Daphne's control, paralyzed by the fear of spiritual misfortune. He admitted to leaving the key under the welcome mat for Daphne's accomplices. The defense tried to argue that Chow was the true mastermind, pointing out that he was the one who received a large insurance payout. The jury listened to all the stories, the excuses, and the evidence. In September of 2019, they made their decision. Daphne Wright was found guilty. She was given the most severe consequence, ensuring she could never harm another family again. While the detectives felt a lingering sense of unfinished business regarding Chow, they found solace in a universal truth. They believed deeply that what happens in the shadows will always be brought into the light. Justice has a long memory, and the universe has a way of balancing the scales. The story of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee is not just a tale of a tragic end. It is a reminder of the beautiful American dream they built with their own hands. It is a testament to the love they shared, the community they enriched, and the tireless dedication of the detectives who never gave up on them. Their legacy lives on in the hearts of those who remember their kindness, proving that even in the face of darkness, the light of love and truth will always prevail. The morning sun always rose with a particular kind of promise over the flat, expansive landscape of Arlington, Texas. In the early years of the new millennium, specifically in the year 2000, the city had become a beacon of hope for many seeking a fresh start. Among those who arrived with hearts full of dreams and bags packed with quiet determination were Long Nguyen and his beloved wife, Hong Lu. They were a couple whose lives had been sculpted by the gentle winds of their Vietnamese homeland, carry with them a deep respect for tradition, family, and a quiet dignity of hard work. To look at them was to see the very definition of resilience. Long was a man of soft-spoken wisdom, his eyes reflecting decades of navigating life's unpredictable currents, while Hong was the vibrant, organizing force of the household, possessing a laughter that could warm the coldest of rooms. Together with their 3 children, they set out to carve a piece of the American dream from the warm Texas soil. They did not seek fame or extraordinary wealth. They sought only a stable, peaceful legacy that they could hand down to their children and grandchildren. Arlington was a massive, thriving city within Tarrant County, known for its rich tapestry of diverse cultures. Following the historic events of 1975, a great wave of Vietnamese immigrants had established a vibrant, close-knit community there. By the 1980s and late 1990s, this community had grown into a bustling, supportive network. Long and Hong studied the area carefully. They saw a place where their heritage could not only survive but truly flourish. And so they chose Arlington as a perfect sanctuary to build their business and raise their family. In those golden early years, their enterprise was a testament to family unity. They established a commercial sewing business, transforming rolls of vibrant fabric into beautifully crafted garments. Because language barriers could sometimes make the American business landscape difficult to navigate, they relied heavily on their son-in-law, Chow Tran. Chow was a young man of 38 years who possessed a sharp mind and fluent English. He became the public face of the business, coordinating with contractors, managing shipments, and speaking with the various commercial entities that kept their sewing machines humming late into the night. Their dedication paid off handsomely. After nearly a decade of relentless effort, their sewing business secured a highly lucrative contract with a commercial giant, manufacturing garments for none other than the world-famous Disney brand. For a time, it seemed as though their American dream had reached its absolute peak. The hum of the sewing machines was the sweetest music, representing security, happiness, and the sweet fruit of honest labor. However, as is the nature of the human journey, tides eventually turn. By the year 2011, the contract with the commercial giant was lost, and the business began a slow, agonizing decline. For an elderly couple who had poured their entire souls into this legacy, the sudden change in fortune felt like an invisible weight pressing down upon their shoulders. In Vietnamese culture, when a family experiences a sudden string of misfortune, it is not uncommon to look beyond the physical world for answers. For thousands of years, people have believed in the power of spiritual balance, praying to traditional deities of luck and protection to restore harmony and attract prosperity. When physical solutions failed, the family turned to these ancient beliefs. Chow Tran and his mother-in-law, Hong, began searching for a spiritual advisor who could help them lift what they feared was a dark curse hanging over their business. In a local Vietnamese newspaper, they discovered an advertisement for a spiritual advisor named Daphne Wright, based some 250 miles away in the bustling coastal city of Houston. Daphne advertised herself as a powerful spiritual protector, a woman who claimed she could lift bad curses, bestow good fortune, and bring back the light of prosperity to struggling families. To a family drowning in financial worry, her words felt like a lifeline. Chow made contact with her, and alongside his mother-in-law, they traveled to Houston for a consultation. At first, the rituals she performed filled them with a profound sense of hope. They returned to Arlington believing that their luck would surely change and that the sewing machines would soon hum with prosperity once more. But human greed is a subtle, dangerous thing, often disguised as help. Instead of delivering them from their troubles, this connection slowly pulled the family into a deep financial abyss. Daphne was not a simple spiritual advisor. She was an extraordinarily manipulative individual who operated like a spiritual loan shark. Over the course of months, she ran her services on credit, charging astronomical fees that quickly ballooned into a staggering debt of somewhere between $150,000 and $280,000. The family, terrified of the spiritual consequences of failing to pay a woman they believed possessed supernatural powers, continued to pour whatever money they had into her bottomless rituals. Then, on the morning of June 10, 2012, the fragile piece of the family was shattered forever. At exactly 7 hours and 29 minutes in the morning, emergency dispatchers in Arlington received a frantic call from Chow Tran. He was asking for a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, explaining to the operator that his son and wife had gone to the apartment and noticed that things looked terribly wrong. A window was open, items appeared to be scattered, and a heavy, terrifying silence hung over the home. When police officers arrived, they found the family gathered outside, too terrified to enter. Officer Weller, a dedicated public servant with 14 years of experience, was the first to step through the door. The apartment was in complete disarray, resembling a burglary. Furniture was overturned, and compact discs were scattered across the living room floor. Weller called out, but only silence answered him. He checked the kitchen and the bathroom, finding them empty. Finally, Weller stepped into the bedroom. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place, and he felt a brief wave of relief, thinking the elderly couple had simply gone for an early morning walk. But as he turned to leave, his flashlight caught several dark hand smudges on the wall next to a remarkably small closet. A deep, instinctual hesitation washed over him. Every fiber of his being told him that opening that door would change everything, yet his duty compelled him forward. He opened the closet door. Inside, he discovered the tragic, quiet forms of Long Nguyen and Hong Lu. They had been hog-tied with thick duct tape, their heads and mouths completely wrapped. In that split second, the veteran officer was left in absolute shock. He walked out of the bedroom into the living room, unable to speak, unable to even use his radio to call for help. He simply stood there in the middle of the room, processing a scene that would forever be etched into his memory. When he finally regained his voice, he called for a supervisor and a crime scene unit. Detective Stewart, a seasoned homicide investigator with 21 years of service, arrived shortly after. Even for a man who had seen the worst of humanity, this scene was deeply unsettling. The initial evidence pointed toward a robbery gone wrong. On the coffee table lay a plate of crushed prescription pills and a marijuana cigarette. Most striking of all was a light blue bandana wrapped tightly around a beer bottle, left in plain sight. To the investigators, the blue bandana seemed like an obvious calling card. Arlington was home to several active Vietnamese youth gangs known for extorting local businesses. But as Detective Stewart examined the scene more closely, a sense of skepticism began to grow. The evidence felt almost too perfect, too neatly arranged, as if someone had gone to great lengths to stage a gang-related robbery to throw the police off the scent. As the community wrapped its arms around the grieving family, detectives began the painstaking process of interviewing relatives and neighbors. Everyone spoke of Long and Hong with immense love and respect. They were a sweet, generous, and hard-working couple who had no known enemies. The first major breakthrough came from a routine inquiry. Detective Stewart received a call from an insurance company disclosing that the deceased couple carried substantial life insurance policies totaling at least $1 million. When investigators looked into the beneficiaries, they found that one of the primary recipients of the payout was none other than Chow Tran. When questioned, Chow cooperated fully. He explained that because the sewing business was in his in-laws' names, the insurance policies were established to ensure the family could carry on the business if A, tragedy occurred. He and the rest of the family provided airtight alibis for the night of the murders, explaining that they had been celebrating Long's birthday at a family gathering until 10 o'clock. That evening, forensic teams processed the crime scene with meticulous care, gathering DNA from the discarded marijuana cigarette and fingerprints from the duct tape. They hoped these physical clues would lead them directly to the killers. However, when the results returned from a national database, there was no match. For 2 long years, the case grew cold, leaving the family and the detectives in a state of unresolved sorrow. Then, in the year 2015, the universe worked in its own mysterious way to bring the truth to light. In Houston, a 16-year-old youth named Willie Guillory was arrested for a felony charge of stealing a horse. Because he had transitioned into adulthood and was now convicted of felony, his DNA profile was entered into the national database. Within days, a computer system in Washington flagged a perfect match. The DNA on the marijuana cigarette from the 2012 crime scene belonged to Willie Guillory. Willie was brought in for questioning. When confronted with the absolute certainty of the DNA evidence, the young man broke down in tears and confessed. He revealed that he had not acted alone. He had been brought to Arlington by his 49-year-old uncle, Bobby Guillory, a man who had never been in trouble with the law, but was desperately struggling with poverty after being laid off from his job. According to Willie, his Uncle Bobby had been offered $10,000 to commit the act. The mastermind behind the entire plot, he claimed, was Daphne Wright. Daphne had provided Bobby with a key to the apartment, which allowed them to enter and stage the burglary before the elderly couple returned home. Armed with this information, detectives traveled to Katy, Texas, to arrest Bobby Guillory. Confronted with a search warrant for his DNA, Bobby also confessed. He spoke of his financial desperation and how Daphne had manipulated his fear of poverty. He confirmed that Daphne was a true driving force, a woman who demanded her money at all costs. When detectives asked Bobby how Daphne had obtained the key to the apartment, Bobby delivered a shocking revelation. The key had been provided by Chow Tran. The investigation quickly shifted focus to Daphne Wright. Detectives executed a search warrant at her Houston home, where they discovered a detailed business ledger. The ledger revealed that she was charging desperate clients $10, $20, $30, and even $40,000 for her spiritual services. Under intense interrogation, Chow Tran eventually agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity, providing the final, crucial pieces of the puzzle. He painted a picture of a family entirely dominated by fear. He claimed that they believed Daphne possessed absolute power over their minds and bodies. In a bizarre twist of desperation, Chow claimed that his mother-in-law, Hong, had actually volunteered to sacrifice herself so the family could collect the insurance money to pay off their massive spiritual debt. However, investigators remained highly skeptical of this claim, believing instead that greed had simply driven the conspirators to a horrific end. On August 26, 2019, the trial of Daphne Wright began. Chow Tran took the stand as the state's star witness.